This is ABC15 Mornings.
Well, breaking overnight, a deadly RV fire in South Phoenix. Police and firefighters just clearing the scene. I'm John Genovese, and coming up, we're live with everything we're learning so far.
And more top stories at 5. A shift in the flu cases here as we see a decline in the number of patients, but unfortunately, it's not all good news.
It's Friday morning. Maybe you're looking to blow off some steam from a long work week and have some fun at the same time. Well, this weekend there's a new option, and it might just bowl you over. Little clue there.
A little play on words.
Yeah, we're trying to crank you up on this Friday as we move into the weekend. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Kaylee O'Kelly.
And I'm Nick Saletti. Let's talk about that most accurate forecast yesterday. I think that the warmest day so far this year. Meteorologist Iris Hermosillo tracking even more warm weather for the weekend.
Yeah, so yesterday we reached a high of 84, and it was the warmest day of the year so far, but today is going to be yesterday. And so today is going down as the warmest day of the year so far here by this afternoon. Now this morning we're off to a milder start. You're going to notice the difference as you step outside. 50s and 60s across the valley. It's not as cold as it's been, and that's partly due to how warm it was yesterday, the clouds we've got around, and also some breezes that are keeping those temperatures elevated. Another quick warm up, so plan on mid 70s today as early as 10 o'clock, low 80s by lunchtime. Then we'll reach a high today of 86 degrees in that 4 o'clock hour, so a couple of degrees warmer than it was yesterday. We'll talk about how much longer these 80s stick around before our next chance for rain.
Well, I'm John Genovese, live near 7th Street and Broadway in South Phoenix, where police, firefighters, and the coroner's office have just left the scene of a fatal RV fire overnight. Take a look behind me. We are actually just off of 9th Street near Elwood, and you can see there this RV was actually parked beyond those gates. Now, take a look at this video from when we first got here. This call came out just before 1 o'clock this morning, and from where we were on Elwood there, you can see that RV parked between two others in what looks to be this home and dirt back lot backyard area. Now, we are waiting for more details from the Phoenix Fire Department, but a Phoenix police supervisor here at the scene told us that an adult was killed. Now, we don't know anything about them yet, who they are, or if they were living here or visiting, or any other circumstances about what may have led up to this fire. Now, fire officials did tell us that through all this, no firefighters were killed. They say they were able to get out here and quickly suppress those flames. Now, again, we are working to get more information on this. Again, a police supervisor only telling us so far that an adult was killed in this. I can tell you from going over to the gate that there is a lot of debris. That RV is completely torched. Fire officials also telling us that several other people who were inside were able to get out before they got on scene. Guys, we'll certainly keep checking back into this, and once we get any new information, we'll pass that along in this broadcast.
All right, John, so incredibly sad. Thank you for that live report.
Yeah.
Now to the health concerns this morning as we get some brand new information on the number of flu cases here in Arizona. And we've learned another child has died from flu-related complications. The Arizona Department of Health Services releasing those new numbers overnight for the final week of February. The number of laboratory confirmed cases is down to 971. That's a drop of 30% from the week before. But there are now 3 influenza-associated pediatric deaths. We do not have information on where exactly this child lived, but we do know the child tested positive for influenza A. The other 2 cases were influenza B. The other health concern, of course, is the coronavirus. At least a dozen people have died here in the U.S., and Congress is taking action. An $8.3 billion measure to fight the coronavirus now heading to the president's desk. The Senate passed the bill yesterday. It would provide money for vaccines, testing, and help state and local governments respond to threats from outbreaks. Kaylee.
Well, the mother of 2 missing kids who used to live right here in the valley is back in Idaho. This morning, we are just hours away from her court appearance there. And our Claudia Rupsich is in Rexburg, Idaho, ahead of today's hearing.
Lori Vallow spent the night inside the Madison County Jail. And in a few hours, we will be inside this courtroom as she faces an Idaho judge for the first time.
Nearly 6 months after JJ and Tylee were last seen, their mom, Lori Vallow, was extradited from Hawaii. She was flown to LA, Seattle, and Boise, Idaho.
Where are your kids?
There, she got on the governor's plane to Rexburg. Deputies brought her into the Madison County Jail in this police van. Several hours later, she was driven across the driveway to the Women's Detention Center next door. Meanwhile, the FBI is releasing new images from a family trip to Yellowstone National Park. These were taken on September 8th and show Lori, JJ, Tylee, and Lori's brother. The FBI wants anyone who was at the park on that day to upload photos and videos that could help them in the search for the kids.
Vallow's bond is set at $5 million. Her attorneys tomorrow will ask the judge to get that bond reduced. In Rexburg, Idaho, I'm Claudia Rupsich, ABC 15 Arizona.
Claudia, thank you. Meantime, a 15-year-old boy is dead, and police say they've made an arrest in this shooting at Desert Sky Mall. Officers arresting Damon Hayes. The 27-year-old's accused of opening fire inside that mall Tuesday, killing that 15-year-old boy. Police say this all started as an argument between two groups of people there.
As some of you know, that at the beginning of this campaign, there were some 18 candidates contesting for the Democratic nomination. Well, we're down to 2.
Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders speaking to hundreds of supporters last night at Veterans Memorial Coliseum, discussing Medicare, climate change, prison systems, and criticizing his Democratic opponent, Joe Biden. You can catch the entire speech. It's up on ABC15.com right now. But before Sanders even stepped foot into the Coliseum last night, he did make a slight detour, his motorcade pulling over in the historic Encanto Park neighborhood. And he hopped out and just started walking for about 20 minutes, all while his rally was supposed to be getting underway. Neighbors out walking their dogs totally had a double take, as you might imagine.
I'm looking at him thinking, well, you look like Bernie Sanders. And then, oh, you are Bernie Sanders. Had no idea he was having a rally, that he was in the city, and here he is in our little neighborhood.
It's just great. It just shows this is Arizona, right? Like, oh, hey, how you doing? Our Steve Irvin did catch up with Sanders moments later and asked who was on the other line. Sanders is saying that he was actually talking to his wife, and we saw those images of him on the phone.
And hey, that's a beautiful part of Phoenix, right? The Encanto neighborhood.
Gorgeous.
So, yeah,
yes.
Can't blame him, I guess. President Donald Trump not holding back against his potential opponent. President Trump held a town hall last night in Pennsylvania and had this to say about Super Tuesday and that close race between Senator Sanders and Joe Biden.
I was all set for Bernie. I was ready to go. And then I say, you know, I don't think I'm running against Bernie. I think it's going to be very hard for him to come back.
Well, the president may have to watch out for a former opponent. Mike Bloomberg is out of the presidential race, of course, but he isn't backing out 100%. He's funding an anti-Trump operation in 6 battleground states, including here in Arizona, and will also fund efforts to fight Senator Sanders from winning the nomination. The former mayor will pay for field offices in these states.
Well, now that the Democratic presidential candidate field is dwindling, what will happen to your vote for the presidential preference election here in Arizona? Well, for those of you who have already turned in your ballot, you are out of luck. But if you've marked your ballot, maybe you haven't turned it in just yet, it's not too late. You can request a replacement ballot by 5 o'clock tonight. That's the deadline, or show up and vote in person.
Arizona moves forward in getting insurance coverage for mental health for our youth. We'll have the details of the new Jake's Law coming up in just a few.
Plus, an honor for women, 100 of them. The unique way Time Magazine is celebrating these leading ladies.
It's going to be a warmer day in the valley and warmer across the state. Sedona could hit 70 degrees. More breezes today, too. We'll talk about those winds and the changes in your 7-day forecast next.
Well, it is Women's History Month. Time Magazine reaching back to redesign the covers, too. This to mark 100 Women of the Year in history and many who have helped to shape our world. The project selecting women between 1920 and 2019, from Marilyn Monroe to Michelle Obama, Margaret Thatcher and Princess Diana. Certainly a lot more. The covers are photographs and 49 original portraits that Time Magazine commissioned to have done.
All right, lots of women
really
in
cool.
history there that
Yes.
we love to honor, of course, this month, especially the month of March.
That's right. Girl power.
Yes. All right, let's talk about meteorologist Iris Hermosillo. You're one of our leading ladies, Iris.
Well, you know, thank you. Oh, that's very nice of you
Solid.
to say.
It's all true.
Hey, you know, you mentioned Marilyn Monroe. Our executive producer just asked me, is today a Marilyn Monroe type of day? Because of the winds. And, you know, I don't think the winds are going to be that strong, but we will get more breezes. So keep that in mind as you're picking out your outfits here today. 61 degrees. So you may also not need to include a heavier sweater in your outfit this morning, as it's not that cold right now. And our temperatures will likely stay in the 50s to 60s to start the day before we warm into the mid-80s. And today looks to end up 2 degrees warmer than yesterday. It'll be breezy. Our gusts near 20 to 25 miles an hour here this afternoon, with temperatures warming quickly into the low 80s as early as lunchtime. We'll reach 86 degrees by the middle of the afternoon. And notice we're going to stay in those 80s through about 6 p.m., then fall back into the 70s after that. But it's going to be a nice evening overall in case you've got plans, maybe dinner, or you're heading out to happy hour. Sit outside on the patio. I think it's going to be gorgeous. Tomorrow, more breezes, not quite as warm. Those winds will again peak right near that 25-mile-an-hour mark here in the valley, 25 to 30 miles an hour in northern Arizona tomorrow. These winds are cranking up ahead of a cold front that's bringing cooler air our way. By Sunday, 10 degrees cooler than Saturday. And there is a slight chance for rain, although I don't think we're going to see much. Monday looks dry, then bigger rain chances Tuesday, Wednesday, even into Thursday. We'll talk more about that storm system next. Nick.
Iris, thank you. As the coronavirus spreads globally, we've seen entire schools shutting down because of the number of cases. The first case here in Arizona actually tied to someone at the ASU community. But how would an entire university operate in the case of an outbreak? ASU testing out virtual classroom technology. About 7,000 students participated in yesterday's Zoom test. Classes will resume as normal after spring break. I've taken a few online classes. Zoom now is getting super popular. Meantime, many companies are telling their employees to work from home as the coronavirus spreads. For some of us, that's not possible. In today's GMA First Look, ABC's Gio Benitez shows us how to protect yourself on your commute.
In this morning's GMA First Look, protecting yourself on a plane. If you use wipes, make sure to read the label to see how long it takes to kill bacteria. That can range from 30 seconds to a few minutes.
So we've got our wipes. This is the most important thing, getting this tray table.
In one study sponsored by the FAA, researchers found that the bottom of the tray table had less bacteria than the top, but armrests had even more germs than tray tables. And don't forget that air vent. But if you're healthy, experts say don't even open it. Air on a plane is refreshed every few minutes. That's more often than the air in an average office building. And coming up at 7 a.m., we'll have full live coverage from coast to coast on the coronavirus. Plus, Dr. Jen Ashton answers your questions live. With your GMA First Look, I'm Gio Benitez, ABC News, New York.
The third stair always creaked, and your mother told me all her life that I should fix it. Now, it reminds me of her. I'm just glad I never fixed it.
Listen, you don't need to go anywhere, Dad. Meet Christine. She's going to help you around the house.
The best home to be in is your own. From personal care and memory care to help around the house, Home Instead offers personalized in-home services for your loved ones. Home Instead Senior Care. To us, it's personal.
Beds get sick too. Protection. Lysol laundry sanitizer kills 99.9% of illness-causing bacteria detergent leaves behind. Lysol, what it takes to protect.
With Advil Liquid Gels, you have fast-acting power over pain. So the whole world looks different. The unbeatable strength and speed of Advil Liquid Gels.
What pain?
Now to the tough topic of teen suicide. It's unfortunately happening in communities all around us.
But we do have some hope to share with you this morning.
We're trying to make sure nobody has to bury a child because of suicide.
Denise and Ben Denslow of Gilbert lost their son Jake. This was back in 2016. And they have been working really hard to keep other families from ever having to endure a loss like this, to completely preventable epidemics happening around our state. This week, their 2-year plight became a reality when Governor Doug Ducey signed Senate Bill 1523 into law. We talked about it. It is called Jake's Law.
ABC 15's Carla Navarrete is here with us this morning on what exactly Jake's Law does to help prevent these teen suicides. So Carla, explain how all of this works.
Well, I'll tell you, Governor Ducey has in the past signed other laws that help deal with our suicide epidemic that our youth are currently suffering. Now, this new law deals specifically with insurance, with something called parity. That means treating anything of illness of the brain just like you would any physical condition.
What we do won't bring Jake back, but we can make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else.
When Denise and Ben Denslow lost their youngest son, Jake, to suicide, their world crumbled.
You know, we always think, it's not me, not my kid, this can't happen in my family. We used to think the same thing.
At around 13 years old, Jake went from a young teenager full of friends to depressed and eventually suicidal.
We tried to get him care. He had a loving family, and he still struggled.
Eventually making his way into a mental health facility.
Basically twice in a span of about 5 weeks. Both times they only kept him for 5 days.
His parents knew the 5 days weren't enough. Jake needed more help, but according to the Denslows, the insurance company denied further care.
Jake was home. We get a stack of appeal papers. We have no idea. We don't know medical codes. We don't know what to write on there. We have no idea what we're doing. You know, Jake's in crisis. We're in crisis. We don't know what to do. And less than 3 months later, he was gone.
After losing Jake, his parents discovered the insurance carrier had failed to abide by federal parity laws, meaning treating his suicide ideation like any other physical illness.
We can tell you for a fact that the insurance company that provided Jake care was not following parity, because if they were, he never would have been released.
The Denslows decided to go the legislative route by holding insurance companies in Arizona accountable to parity laws. Jake's law was signed on Tuesday with Denise and Ben holding up their son's picture in his memory. The law will provide trained staff and personnel at the Office of Insurance, checking that insurance carriers follow Arizona law. $8 million to help parents pay for those crises services while the insurance companies start abiding by the new law. It allocates $300,000 to the Department of Education for research on best practices for mental health in schools.
And then if for whatever reason the child's in crisis or they're really struggling and maybe there's a gap there between their insurance coverage, or maybe they're not contracted, then they can have access to this $8 million fund to kind of bridge that gap and say, hey, let's get them care.
The Denslows believe the new law will help prevent another suicide from happening to another family who, like them, is doing all they can to save their teenager during a moment of crisis.
It's good for Arizona. It will save lives. We know it will save lives.
Suicide Mortality Review Team is part of this new law, and their job will be to see the symptoms that lead up to suicide in hopes of preventing another suicide from happening. We want to give a big thanks to the Denslows for sitting down with us and sharing with us their plight for this new law. Back to you guys in the studio.
Carla, thank you for letting some perspective to this, because so often we hear, different bills and different laws named, but we don't have any context. We don't have any idea exactly the story behind it. And that was such a vulnerable place for this family to go with us, and we so appreciate it. Thank you for sharing their story.
Of course.
And Jake's too.
Yeah, and we can't understate their strength. Carla, thank you. Let's get to today's top stories right now. President Donald Trump heading to Tennessee to visit areas devastated by tornadoes earlier this week. 25 people were killed by these storms. President Trump has already approved a disaster declaration, making federal funding available to people affected. Taking a vacation on the International Space Station could be possible in the next year. SpaceX has signed a deal with startup Axiom Space to take passengers to the ISS. Axiom has not talked about pricing yet, but previous tourism missions to the space station have cost tens of millions of dollars. So no, it is not cheap. You won't find it on Expedia.
You have the means, right?
All right, well, you've likely heard about the toilet paper shortage. Even though there's no need to be hoarding TP, people are doing it as part of the coronavirus preparations.
A newspaper out of Australia has come up with a solution, though, that might end this buying frenzy. They printed an extra 8 pages in a recent edition. The pages were blank except for some cutout lines. So, you could use the extra pieces in case you have an emergency.
As for here in the U.S., you may not find any on some store shelves, but experts say there is not a disruption in the normal supply chain.
I tried to just get paper towels because we were out and could not find them.
Really?
At Costco. Shelves were empty. I called. They were selling out so quickly.
Wow.
So I had to order them online because we were literally out. So it's not like we were, hoarding them or anything. But man,
it's been an interesting couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Hey, let's talk about that most accurate forecast here on this Friday morning. Good morning to you. Maybe you're getting ready to step outside early, get the day started early so you can get the weekend started early. I know how it works. Our temperature this morning at 61 degrees at Phoenix Sky Harbor. We're off to a milder start this morning. than the last several mornings, and that's partly due to how warm it was yesterday. We also have some breezes out there and some clouds trapping in that warmth. Up to our north, still cold enough for those coats. Flagstaff at 24 degrees, 25 degrees at the Grand Canyon. A little bit milder, though, in spots like Heber at 45, 48 degrees in Payson and Prescott. Good morning. You're waking up to 40 degrees above freezing for you this morning. Look at all of those 60s that we still have in place across the valley. 69 right now in Scottsdale. It's 67 in Deer Valley. Again, those spots where the breezes are just slightly higher, that's what tends to keep our temperatures slightly higher as those winds mix out the air a bit more. 55, though, in Glendale, and cooler in Chandler, down to 52 degrees. But what you're not seeing are any 40s this morning. This morning will start off milder, and we are going to see a quicker warm up. It's also going to be breezy to windy across the state today, with winds ending up between about 10 and 15 miles an hour by mid to late morning, even into this afternoon. Gusts near 25 miles an hour today, and our temperatures into the low 70s by 9 a.m., mid 70s by 10 o'clock, and then we're already into the 80s today by lunchtime. So that means if you're heading out to spring training, temperatures are going to be into the 80s at the start of these games, so even warmer today across the valley. Most games are afternoon games, but we do have one game that's a night game. Temperature by then at around 80 degrees. And then look at these highs. We're talking highs in the mid 80s in most valley cities. Today, look for a high of 86 in Phoenix. Tomorrow, still in the 80s and breezy. And then a cold front cools us off. A 10-degree temperature difference from Saturday to Sunday. Then we've got bigger rain chances early next week. Tuesday, Wednesday, and even Thursday could bring rain. We'll talk more about that storm system in just a few minutes.
I'm Vinny Politan. Coming up today on Court TV, coverage of two big trials, one in Los Angeles. It's California versus Robert Durst, the man made famous by the HBO docuseries The Jinx, on trial for a murder from 2000. Also, we're covering a case down in Polk County, Florida. That's the defendant. He's accused of shooting execution style a man who was set up, according to prosecutors, after going on a dating app. We are live in Polk County, Florida and California today on Court TV.
ABC15 Desert Drive Time, sponsored by Accident Law Group.
Happy Friday to you, and our roads are absolutely showing it as I give you a wider look at all of the maps, only yellow in just one spot here in the valley. So I want to show you your desert drive times because they are all green for you. On the I-10 eastbound 75th Avenue to the mini stack, it'll take you 9 minutes. On the US 60 Val Vista to the Loop 101, 10 minutes. And the I-17 southbound Loop 101 to the stack, 13 minutes. Coming up, we're going to talk about some weekend construction that could impact your plans this weekend. That's ahead.
Megan, thank you. Spring training is in full swing right now, but Arizona Diamondbacks center fielder startling Marte, took some time out of his busy schedule. This is for a big surprise.
Yeah, how about a shopping spree for 16 baseball and softball players? Look at these kids from the Arizona Pony League. All the good feels at Dick's Sporting Goods in Scottsdale. Each of them getting a $150 gift card for some new gear. And guess what? That wasn't all. He took them to the batting cages to give them some pointers from a pro. Think of the confidence they're going to have up there now.
I was going to say, he's the one to give them. That's
awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, great job. Hey, looking for something fun to do? A new kind of entertainment experience is opening this weekend at the Talking Stick Entertainment District. This is a look inside Mavericks Entertainment Center. It has an arcade, laser tag, a restaurant, and 4 bars.
Man, that burger looked really good. Okay, so what is setting this apart from the rest? It's something called Spark Bowling, and it turns your bowling experience into a game within a game.
It has an augmented reality experience. We have laser projectors that shoot down images, and then when you bowl the ball, it actually interacts with the lanes.
All right, Mavericks is one of only 3 places in the world where you can play Spark Bowling. You can check it out tomorrow when doors open for the first time at 5 p.m. It's pretty awesome.
That looks amazing, doesn't it?
Take the kids if they love it.
For sure.